Tunde Adebayo heard the crying before he saw her. It was past 10 p.m., and he was closing up his small roadside mechanic shop in Ikeja when the sound reached him. Weak, desperate sobs coming from the darkness beyond his workshop. He grabbed his torch and followed the sound to the gutter beside the road. What he found made his blood run cold. A woman, heavily pregnant, lay crumpled against the drainage wall. Her expensive-looking maternity dress was torn and muddy, her face was swollen and bruised, and she was bleeding from a cut on her forehead. But what terrified Tunde most was her skin. Gray, cold, her lips tinged blue. Madam, can you hear me?" He knelt beside her, checking for a pulse. It was there, but weak and thready. Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused. "Please, my baby. Please don't let my baby die. What happened?" "Who did this to you?" "My husband. He threw me out. Said I'm useless. Said the baby isn't his." Her voice was barely a whisper. "I'm so cold. Everything hurts. I think I'm dying." "You're not dying. Not on my watch." Tunde was already lifting her. She was surprisingly light for a pregnant woman, as if she hadn't been eating properly. "I'm taking you to the hospital." "No hospital," she gasped, gripping his shirt with surprising strength. "No money, no ID. They'll just turn me away. Please, just somewhere warm, somewhere safe, just for tonight." Tunde hesitated. He should take her to a hospital regardless, but he'd lived in Lagos long enough to know she was right. No money, no ID, and covered in injuries that screamed domestic violence. Most hospitals would either turn her away or call police. And that would mean questions, delays, bureaucracy, and this woman didn't look like she had time for any of that. "Okay," he said. "I'll take you to my place. It's not much, but it's warm and safe." His place was a single room behind his mechanic shop, barely large enough for his mattress, a small gas stove, and a plastic chair. But it was clean, it was dry, and right now it was what this dying woman needed. He laid her on his mattress, the only soft surface he owned. Her breathing was shallow, labored. He'd seen enough sick people in his 30 years to know she needed a doctor, hospital or not. "I'm going to check your injuries, okay? I'm not a doctor, but I did first aid training at the mechanic training center." As he carefully examined her, his concern grew. The head wound was superficial, but her abdomen was rigid and tender. Her feet were massively swollen. Her blood pressure, when he checked with the small kit he kept for emergencies, was dangerously high. "Madam, you need a real doctor. This is serious. You might have... I don't know the name, but pregnant women can get sick from high blood pressure. You need..." "Tomorrow," she whispered. "If I'm still alive tomorrow, we'll find a doctor. But tonight I just need to not be alone, to not be on the street. Please." Her eyes, despite the pain and fear, held something else, intelligence, calculation, as if she was measuring him, testing him somehow. "What's your name?" Tunde asked gently, wiping her face with a clean, damp cloth. She hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. "Zainab." "I'm Tunde. You're safe here, Zainab. I promise." Over the next hour, he did everything he could. He cleaned her wounds. He made her drink water, slowly, sips at a time. He found his one spare blanket and covered her. He boiled rice and tried to get her to eat, but she could only manage a few spoonfuls. "Your husband," Tunde said as he sat on the floor beside the mattress, keeping watch. "What kind of man throws out his pregnant wife?" "The kind who thought he was getting a poor, grateful woman who'd be easy to control," Zainab said bitterly. "I told him I was an orphan with nothing. That was true, in a way, and for 2 years he loved me, or said he did. But when the pregnancy got difficult, when I couldn't work anymore, when the medical bills started, he changed, said I was a burden, said he'd made a mistake marrying someone with no family, no money, no value. That's evil. That's reality for women like me," she said. "Women with nothing. No one to protect us. No one to speak for us." Tunde thought about his own mother, who died when he was 15. She'd been poor too, abandoned by his father, working herself to death to raise him. He remembered how people had looked through her, dismissed her, treated her like she was less than human because she had no money, no education, no powerful family. "You're not nothing," he said firmly. "You're a human being. You're a mother carrying a child. That makes you everything." Zainab's eyes filled with tears. "You don't even know me. Why are you helping me?" "Because it's the right thing to do," Tunde shrugged. "My mama used to say, God is always watching. When you help someone who can't repay you, that's when your character shows." Something flickered across Zainab's face, emotion he couldn't quite read. Surprise? Satisfaction? Relief? "Your mother sounds wise." "She was," Tunde smiled sadly. "She's gone now, but her lesson stayed with me." Around 2 a.m., Zainab's condition worsened. She began having contractions. Not labor, but something was wrong. Tunde was preparing to carry her to the nearest hospital regardless of her protests when she grabbed his hand. "There's something you should know," she whispered. I'm not exactly who I said I am." "What do you mean?" Before she could answer, her eyes rolled back and she went limp. Zainab! Zainab! Tunde checked her pulse, still there but irregular. The baby, he realized with horror. Something was wrong with the baby. He scooped her up and ran to his old truck, laying her across the back seat. The nearest hospital was General Hospital, 5 kilometers away. He prayed it would be fast enough. As he drove, breaking every speed limit, his phone rang. Unknown number. He ignored it. It rang again and again. Finally, at a red light, he answered. What? Mr. Tunde Adebayo? A man's voice, calm, authoritative. Yes, but I can't talk. I have an emergency. We know. We've been watching. Drive to Lagoon Hospital instead. They're expecting you. Everything is arranged. Just get her there. What? Who is this? How do you? Drive, Mr. Adebayo. Questions later. Lagoon Hospital. Now. The line went dead. Tunde's hands shook on the steering wheel. Who was watching? How did they know? What was happening? But Zainab was dying, and Lagoon Hospital was closer than General Hospital anyway. He made the turn. At Lagoon Hospital, the gates opened before he even announced himself. A team of doctors and nurses swarmed his truck before he'd fully stopped, lifting Zainab onto a gurney with professional efficiency. Sir, please come with us, a nurse said. Doctor needs information about the patient. I don't know anything. I just found her tonight. She was thrown out by her husband. We know, the nurse said. Just come. In the chaos of the emergency room, Tunde stood helpless as they worked on Zainab. One doctor barked orders. Preeclampsia severe. She's going into eclamptic seizures. Prep for emergency C-section. Get the neonatal team ready. And someone call... Already done, another voice said. A man in an expensive suit stepped out of the shadows. He's on his way. Who's on his way? Tunde demanded. Who are you people? The man looked at Tunde with an expression that was part assessment, part approval. You saved her life tonight, Mr. Adebayo. You didn't have to. You had nothing to gain. That speaks well of your character. I don't understand. You will, soon enough. The man glanced at his phone. He'll be here in 10 minutes. And then, Mr. Adebayo, your life is about to change in ways you cannot imagine. Have you ever helped someone and later discovered they were more than they seemed? What's really going on? Drop your thoughts, like subscribe to Stories by Ajibs, and turn on notifications. This mystery is just beginning. The surgery lasted 3 hours. Tunde sat in the waiting area, surrounded by luxury he'd only seen in movies. Marble floors, leather sofas, art on the walls. Lagoon Hospital was where Lagos's elite came for medical care. A single night here probably cost more than he earned in 6 months. Every time he tried to leave, the man in the expensive suit, who'd introduced himself only as Mr. Benson, politely but firmly insisted he stay. You brought her here. You should know the outcome. But I don't understand how this is even being paid for. I can't afford... It's handled, Mr. Benson said, and his tone made it clear no further questions would be answered. Around 4 a.m., a doctor emerged, pulling off his surgical mask. The mother and baby are both stable. It was close, but we got them both through. A boy, small but healthy. The mother will need intensive care for a few days, but she should recover fully. Tunde felt tears sting his eyes. Thank God. Can I see her? Not yet. She's in recovery. But Mr. Adebayo, there's someone who wants to meet you first. Before Tunde could ask who, the hospital's atmosphere changed. Security guards suddenly appeared at every entrance. Hospital staff straightened their postures. And then, through the main entrance, walked a man who commanded attention without saying a word. Chief Olanrewaju was in his 60s, tall and imposing, wearing traditional attire that screamed wealth and power. Tunde recognized him immediately. Everyone in Lagos knew Chief Olanrewaju, one of Nigeria's richest men, owner of Olanrewaju Oil and Gas, and half a dozen other companies. What Tunde didn't understand was why a billionaire was here, at 4 a.m., walking straight toward him. Mr. Tunde Adebayo, Chief Olanrewaju's voice was deep, measured. The man who saved my daughter's life. The world tilted. Your daughter? Zainab Olanrewaju, the chief said. My only child. The woman you found in a gutter tonight. The woman you gave shelter to. The woman you risked everything to save, she's my daughter. Tunde's legs gave out. He sat down hard on the leather sofa. That's impossible. She said she was an orphan. She said she had nothing, no family. She lied, Chief Olanrewaju said, but there was no anger in his voice, only sadness. 2 years ago, my daughter disappeared. Left everything behind. Her wealth, her position, her future. Because she wanted to know if someone could love her for herself, not for my money. He sat down beside Tunde, this billionaire beside a poor mechanic, and for a moment, he just looked tired. My wife died when Zainab was 10. I raised her alone, gave her everything money could buy, but I also taught her that money changes people, makes them see you as an opportunity rather than a person. She grew up watching people pretend to care about her when they really cared about my wealth. Chief Olanrewaju paused. On her 23rd birthday, she told me she wanted to find real love, someone who would love her without knowing about the money. I thought it was foolish, dangerous. We argued. She left. 2 years, Tunde whispered. You didn't know where she was for 2 years? Oh, I knew. the chief said, and now there was steel in his voice. I had her followed from the day she left. Not closely. I respected her wishes enough to give her space, but I needed to know she was safe. My security team reported regularly. She was living in a modest apartment in Surulere, working as a salesgirl. Then she met David Okonkwo. The name clearly left a bitter taste in his mouth. She married him 6 months later. Still using a false identity, still pretending to be an orphan with nothing. I wanted to intervene, to tell him who she really was, but Zainab made me promise. She said this was her test. If David could love her when she had nothing, then she'd know it was real. He failed the test, Tunde said quietly. Spectacularly. Chief Olanrewaju's jaw clenched. For the first year, he seemed decent enough. But when the pregnancy became difficult, when she could no longer work, when the medical bills started mounting, my daughter refused to let me pay them, wanted to see what he would do. His true character emerged. He became cruel, called her a burden. My security team reported the verbal abuse, the occasional physical violence. I wanted to extract her immediately, but Zainab kept refusing. She said she needed to see it through. Until tonight, Tunde said. Until tonight, when he threw her out to die. My security team called me immediately when they lost track of her. We've had people searching for the past 6 hours. He looked at Tunde with an expression of profound respect. And then you found her. A poor mechanic with nothing to gain, you stopped. You helped. You gave her your only bed, your food, your care. You were prepared to take her to the hospital despite having no money. You didn't hesitate. Anyone would have... No, Chief Olanrewaju interrupted firmly. Anyone wouldn't have. In the 6 hours she was missing, my daughter lay in that gutter. Dozens of people must have walked past. Cars drove by, and every single one of them ignored a dying pregnant woman because she couldn't offer them anything. You were the only one who stopped. He pulled an envelope from his agbada. This is for you. It's not payment. You can't pay for saving a life. It's gratitude. Tunde opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a check for 20 million naira. His vision swam. Sir, I can't accept this. It's too much. I just did what was right. Exactly, Chief Olanrewaju said. You did what was right when you had nothing to gain. That's precisely why you deserve this and more. But Mr. Adebayo, the money is just the beginning. I want to know the man who saved my daughter. I want to understand your character, your dreams, your struggles, because the kind of man who stops for a dying stranger is the kind of man the world needs more of. Over the next hour, as dawn broke over Lagos, Tunde found himself telling his story to a billionaire. His childhood in poverty, his mother's death, his apprenticeship as a mechanic, his small shop that barely earned enough to survive, his dream of expanding but never having the capital. Chief Olanrewaju listened to everything, asked questions, made notes on his phone. Finally, he stood. Your shop in Ikeja, the land you're renting. What's the owner asking for it? 15 million naira, but sir, I could never... Consider it bought. In your name. And I'm investing in your business. Proper equipment, trained staff, a real workshop. You'll run it, keep all profits. I just want to see what you build with an opportunity. Tunde couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. Sir, I don't know what to say. Say you'll accept. Say you'll prove that my faith in your character is justified. Chief Olanrewaju extended his hand. My daughter's life is priceless, but your character, your willingness to help when you had nothing, that's also priceless. I'm investing in both. They shook hands, a billionaire and a mechanic, while Lagos woke up outside. Later, when Tunde was finally allowed to see Zainab, she was awake, her newborn son sleeping in her arms. She looked different now, not the desperate dying woman from the gutter, but someone regal, powerful, like the billionaire's daughter she actually was. You knew, Tunde said quietly. Last night, when you said you weren't who you seemed, you were about to tell me. I was, she admitted. I thought I was dying, wanted you to know the truth. But then, she smiled, then you saved me anyway. Even when you thought I was nobody, that means everything. Why did you do it? Tunde asked. Why give up everything to marry someone who treated you like that? Because I needed to know, she said simply. I needed to know if someone could love me without the money. David failed that test, but you... She looked at him with those intelligent eyes that had measured him from the beginning. You passed a test you didn't even know you were taking. You helped someone who could give you nothing. That's real character. A nurse entered. Ma, your husband is here, David Okonkwo. He's demanding to see you. Security is holding him at the entrance. Zainab's expression hardened. Let him in. It's time he learned the truth. Tunde moved to leave, but Zainab caught his hand. Stay, please. You deserve to see this. 5 minutes later, David Okonkwo entered the private room. He was Tunde's age, wearing expensive clothes that didn't quite hide his angry desperation. His eyes found Zainab and relief flashed across his face. Thank God you're alive. Baby, I'm so sorry. I was angry. I didn't mean those things. I've been looking everywhere. Then he saw the luxury room, the equipment, the clear signs of wealth. His expression shifted to confusion. How are you paying for this? This is Lagoon Hospital. How did you... Hello, David. Chief Olanrewaju stepped into the room. "I don't believe we've been properly introduced. I'm Chief Olanrewaju, Zainab's father." David's face went white. That's not possible. She's an orphan. She told me." "She lied," the chief said coldly, "to test your character. To see if you could love my daughter without knowing she was worth billions. You failed that test spectacularly when you threw her out to die." David's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. "Meet your son," Zainab said, her voice ice. "The child you said wasn't yours. The burden you couldn't wait to discard. Take a good look, David, because you'll never see him again." David Okonkwo stood frozen in the hospital room, his face cycling through emotions: shock, disbelief, dawning horror, and finally, desperate calculation. Tunde watched it all, recognizing the exact moment when David's brain shifted from "how is this possible" to "how can I fix this?" "Baby, please," David's voice took on a pleading tone. "I didn't know. If I'd known who you really were, I never would have—" "That's exactly the point," Zainab interrupted, her voice sharp. "You didn't know I had money, so you felt free to treat me like garbage. The moment I became inconvenient, expensive, a burden, you threw me away. But now that you know I'm worth billions, suddenly you're sorry? I made a mistake. I was stressed about money, about the medical bills. Medical bills that totaled less than 1 million naira, Chief Olanrewaju said coldly. My daughter's prenatal care cost N800,000. You threw her out over N800,000. Do you know what I spend on a single business dinner? More than that. Do you know what this hospital room costs per night? 10 times that. You threw away a billionaire heiress over pocket change." David's face was gray now. Tunde could see him doing the math, calculating exactly how catastrophically he'd miscalculated. "Chief, please." "I can explain—" "Explain what?" Zainab's voice was steel. "Explain the names you called me? The times you told me I was worthless? That I was a burden? That you regretted marrying a poor girl with nothing? Explain throwing your pregnant wife into the street at night, knowing she was sick, knowing she might die?" She held her baby closer. "What explanation makes that acceptable?" "I'll make it right. You'll do nothing," Chief Olanrewaju said. "You'll sign divorce papers. You'll relinquish all parental rights. You'll accept a restraining order keeping you away from my daughter and grandson. And you'll do it all quietly, or I'll make sure every person in Lagos knows exactly what kind of man you are." "You can't do this!" David's desperation was turning to anger now. "I have rights." "That's my son." "Is he?" Zainab's voice was poisonous. "Last night you said he wasn't yours. You said I probably got pregnant by someone else. You said you wanted nothing to do with either of us. I have witnesses. The neighbors heard everything you screamed before you threw me out. So which is it, David? Is he your son now that you know there's money involved?" David's jaw worked, but no words came out. "There's a video too," Mr. Benson spoke up from the corner where he'd been standing silently. He held up a phone. "Security footage from your building. Would you like to watch yourself dragging your wife down the stairs, throwing her belongings after her, telling her you hope she dies? It's quite compelling evidence for a divorce filing, and perhaps for assault charges." "I want him prosecuted," Zainab said suddenly. "Attempted murder, assault, reckless endangerment, every charge possible." Chief Olanrewaju shook his head. "Daughter, legal proceedings take time. They're messy, public. They keep him in your life for months or years. Better to cut him out cleanly." "He tried to kill me and our baby," Zainab said, her voice shaking now. He deserves prison," her father agreed. "But what you deserve is peace, freedom, a fresh start without this man's shadow hanging over you. Trust me on this." Zainab looked at her baby, then at her father, and finally nodded. "Fine, but he signs everything. Divorce, parental rights, restraining order, and he leaves Lagos." "Leaves Lagos?" David's voice rose. "You can't exile me from my own city." "I can't," Chief Olanrewaju said mildly, "but I can make staying very uncomfortable. I can make sure no company will hire you. No landlord will rent to you. No business will work with you. I can make Lagos feel very small for you, Mr. Okonkwo. Or you can take the generous severance I'm offering, 5 million naira and a fresh start somewhere else. Your choice." David looked around the room, at the billionaire who held all the power, at the woman he'd thrown away, at the baby worth more than he'd ever be, and at Tunde, the poor mechanic who'd somehow ended up at the center of all this. "You," David said suddenly, pointing at Tunde. "Who the hell are you? What's your angle in all this?" "I'm no one," Tunde said quietly. "Just the man who found your wife dying in a gutter because you threw her away." "And now you're what? Her new man? Is that why you helped her? Saw an opportunity?" "I helped her because she was dying," Tunde said, and his voice was hard now. "I gave her my bed, my food, everything I had. I didn't know who she was. I didn't care. She was a human being who needed help." "And that," Chief Olanrewaju said, "is the difference between men of character and men like you, David. Mr. Adebayo helped when he had nothing to gain. You hurt when you thought you had nothing to lose. Character reveals itself in how we treat those who can't benefit us." David's shoulders slumped. He was beaten and he knew it. "Fine, I'll sign. I'll take your money and leave. But you," he looked at Zainab with something like genuine anguish, "you lied to me. You pretended to be someone you weren't. How is that fair? I gave you a test, Zainab said. A test of character. Rich women never know if men love them or their money. I wanted real love, not transaction. You could have passed that test by simply being decent, by loving me when things got hard, by standing by me when I was sick and scared, but you failed, spectacularly. And him? David gestured at Tunde. What did he get out of this test? Nothing, Tunde said. I didn't know I was being tested. I just saw someone who needed help. Exactly, Zainab said softly. He wasn't trying to pass any test. He was just being who he is. That's the point. Mr. Benson stepped forward with a folder of documents. Sign these, Mr. Okonkwo, then leave. The money will be wired to your account within an hour. I've also prepared a non-disclosure agreement. You will not speak about this family to media, to friends, to anyone. Violation means returning the money and facing legal consequences. David took the pen with shaking hands and signed paper after paper. Divorce petition, voluntary termination of parental rights, restraining order agreement, non-disclosure agreement. With each signature, he severed himself from the biggest opportunity of his life. When he was finished, he stood there for a moment, looking at Zainab one last time. I did love you, at the beginning, before the money stress, before everything got hard. I really did love you. Maybe you did, Zainab said. But love that disappears when tested isn't real love. It's convenience. Real love stays when things get difficult. Goodbye, David. He left without another word. The room felt lighter without him in it. Chief Olanrewaju turned to Tunde. I apologize you had to witness all that. Family drama is never pretty. I understand, Tunde said, but I should go too. You all need time together, and I need to get back to my shop. About that, the chief interrupted. The paperwork for your property went through this morning. The land is yours. I've also had my people begin ordering equipment for your workshop. But Mr. Adebayo, I want to propose something else. He pulled out another document. I'm opening a new division, Olanrewaju Automotive Services. Luxury car maintenance and repair for Lagos's elite. I want you to run it. Not as an employee, but as a partner. 30% ownership, full operational control, my capital and connections backing you. What do you say? Tunde's hands were shaking again. Sir, I'm just a roadside mechanic. I don't know anything about luxury cars. About running a big company. You know about integrity, Chief Olanrewaju said. You know about hard work. You know about treating people right. The technical skills can be taught. The character can't. I'm betting on your character. Zainab spoke up. He's serious, Tunde. When my father bets on someone, he goes all in. He saw something in you last night. Something rare. But why? Tunde's voice was almost a whisper. Why would you do all this for me? Because you helped my daughter when you thought she was nobody, Chief Olanrewaju said simply. Because when the world walked past her dying body, you stopped. Because you gave what little you had without hesitation. That's not common. That's extraordinary. And I invest in extraordinary people. Tunde looked around the room, at the billionaire offering him a fortune, at the woman he'd saved now revealed as an heiress, at the baby boy sleeping peacefully, unaware that his life had been saved by a stranger's kindness. His mother's voice echoed in his memory. God is always watching. When you help someone who can't repay you, that's when your character shows. Okay, Tunde said finally. Yes, I'll do it. I'll work hard. I'll learn everything. I'll make you proud. I'm already proud, Chief Olanrewaju said, shaking his hand. You saved my daughter's life. Everything else is just gratitude. A life transformed by one act of kindness. But what happens next? Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for the next chapter. 3 months had passed since that night in the gutter, and Tunde Adebayo barely recognized his own life. He stood in the lobby of Olanrewaju Automotive Services headquarters, a gleaming 3-story building in Victoria Island with floor-to-ceiling windows and the kind of equipment he'd only dreamed about. The sign outside read, OAS, a Chief Olanrewaju and Tunde Adebayo partnership. His name, on a building, in Victoria Island. Boss, the German engineers are here for the Mercedes training. His new operations manager, Ibrahim, approached with a tablet. They're setting up in Bay 3. Boss. Tunde still wasn't used to being called that. 3 months ago, he'd been alone in a roadside shack, barely making rent. Now he had 40 employees, state-of-the-art equipment, and a client list that included half of Lagos's elite. But it wasn't just the business. Chief Olanrewaju had been true to his word about investing in Tunde's character, not just his skills. He'd enrolled him in business management courses at Lagos Business School, sent him to specialized automotive training in South Africa, introduced him to networks of successful entrepreneurs. You're not just a mechanic anymore, the chief had told him. You're a businessman, a leader, an employer. Learn to think like one. Tunde's phone buzzed. A message from Zainab. Still coming for lunch? Someone wants to see you. He smiled. Zainab had become a friend over these months, not romantic, despite what Lagos gossips whispered, but genuine friendship born from that night's trauma. She was rebuilding her life too, rediscovering who she was beyond the test she'd been living. He drove to the Olanrewaju mansion in his new car, Nothing extravagant, just a reliable Toyota SUV. Chief Olanrewaju had offered him something flashier, but Tunde had declined. Some things about who he was, he wanted to keep. At the mansion, Zainab met him at the door with baby Chukwudi, gift of God, in her arms. The boy was 3 months old now, healthy and thriving. "He's gotten so big," Tunde said, making faces at the baby who gurgled happily. "He asks about you," Zainab joked. "Well, he would if he could talk. Come, lunch is ready, and there's someone I want you to meet." In the dining room, a young woman stood looking at the garden through the windows. She turned when they entered, and Tunde's breath caught. She was beautiful, natural, warm, with intelligent eyes and a genuine smile. "Tunde, this is my friend Amara. She's a pediatrician at Lagoon Hospital. Amara, this is Tunde, the man I've told you about." "The mechanic who saved your life," Amara said, extending her hand. "I've heard so much about you. It's an honor to finally meet you." Over lunch, Tunde learned that Amara was the daughter of a university professor, had studied medicine in Ghana, and had recently returned to Lagos. She was sharp, funny, and refreshingly down-to-earth despite moving in elite circles. "So you really didn't know who Zainab was?" Amara asked. "You just helped because it was right?" "I didn't think about it," Tunde admitted. "I just saw someone dying and knew I had to help." "That's rare," Amara said quietly. "Most people in this city have lost that instinct. They calculate benefit before they act. It's exhausting." They talked for 2 hours, about medicine and mechanics, about Lagos's chaos and beauty, about dreams and values. Tunde found himself relaxing in a way he hadn't in months, despite all his success. Amara didn't look at him like he was a project or an investment. She looked at him like he was just interesting. After she left, Zainab grinned at him. "So? So what? Come on, Tunde. I saw how you looked at her, and how she looked at you." "She's a doctor. I'm a mechanic." "You're a business owner and a partner in a multi-million naira company," Zainab corrected. "But more importantly, you're a good man. That matters more than job titles." "Your father would approve?" Tunde asked carefully. "My father already suggested I introduce you two," Zainab laughed. "He's very transparent about matchmaking. But Tunde, seriously, don't let what happened to me make you afraid. Not every woman is testing you. Amara is real. She knows your whole story and still wanted to meet you. That says something." That evening, back in his new apartment, modest but comfortable in Ikeja, Tunde reflected on how much had changed. He'd moved out of the room behind his old shop, though he'd kept the property. Chief Olanrewaju had suggested renting it out, but Tunde had other ideas. He'd converted it into a training center for young apprentice mechanics, offering free skills training to boys from poor backgrounds like his own. Every Saturday, he taught classes there himself, passing on his knowledge to the next generation. "Remember where you came from," his mother used to say. "Success means nothing if you forget the people still struggling." His phone rang. An unknown number. "Hello? Is this Tunde Adebayo?" A woman's voice, nervous. "Yes, who's this?" "My name is Blessing." "You don't know me, but I'm David Okonkwo's sister." Tunde's stomach tightened. "How did you get this number?" "I'm sorry to intrude. I needed to tell you something. About my brother. About what happened." "I know what happened. He threw out his pregnant wife." "I know, and I'm ashamed of him. Our whole family is ashamed. But Tunde, Mr. Adebayo, I need you to understand something. David isn't evil. He's weak. Our family, we've always been middle class, always struggling to appear successful. When David married who he thought was a poor girl, our parents were furious. They told him he'd married beneath himself, that she'd drag him down. That doesn't excuse—" "I'm not excusing it," Blessing interrupted. "I'm explaining it. When Zainab got pregnant and the medical bills started, David panicked. He was already in debt trying to maintain appearances. He saw her as another mouth to feed, another burden. He listened to our parents instead of his own conscience. What he did was unforgivable. But he's not a monster. He's just a weak man who made the worst possible choice." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because David left Lagos like he was asked to. He's in Ibadan now, working as a mechanic. Funny, isn't it? He's doing what you used to do while you're living the life he could have had. And every day he calls me and cries. Not about the money he lost, about his son. About the fact that he'll never know his own child because he was too weak to be decent when it mattered." There was a long pause. "I'm not asking you to forgive him," Blessing said. "I'm not even asking you to care. I just thought you should know that actions have consequences. David is living with his every single day, and it's destroying him." After she hung up, Tunde sat in the darkness of his apartment thinking. Part of him felt satisfaction. David got what he deserved. But another part, the part that remembered being desperate and poor and one bad decision away from disaster, felt something more complicated. Pity, maybe. Or recognition that he'd been lucky. If he'd been raised differently, taught different values, faced different pressures, would he have made different choices? His phone buzzed. A text from Amara. "I enjoyed meeting you today. Coffee sometime this week?" He smiled and typed back, "I'd like that." The next day, Chief Olanrewaju called him to the mansion. When Tunde arrived, he found the chief in his study, surrounded by newspapers and looking grim. "We have a problem," the chief said without preamble. "What kind of problem?" "David's family is causing trouble. Not legal trouble. They know they'd lose. But social trouble. They're spreading stories in their circles that Zainab deliberately trapped David, that she deceived him, that we're using our wealth to bully a poor man who made one mistake." "That's a lie." "Of course it is. But lies spread faster than truth in Lagos. Some people are listening because they want to believe the rich are the villains. It's easier than accepting that a middle-class man could be cruel to his wife." "What do we do?" Chief Olanrewaju smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. "We tell the truth. All of it. David's family wants to play victim? Let's show Lagos who the real victim was." He opened his laptop and showed Tunde a prepared press release with photographs, medical records, security footage. "Is this too much?" Tunde asked, looking at the evidence of David's cruelty laid out systematically. "Is it too much to defend my daughter's reputation, to show the truth of what she endured?" Chief Olanrewaju's voice was steel. "David's family wants to make this public? Fine, let's go public, but they won't control the narrative." "Will Zainab be okay with this?" "It was her idea," Zainab said from the doorway, holding baby Chukwudi. "I'm done hiding what happened, done protecting David's reputation while mine gets shredded. If his family wants war, they'll get truth, and truth is a weapon they can't defend against." She looked at Tunde. "I need you to be part of this. To tell your side, how you found me, what condition I was in. Will you do that?" Tunde thought about Blessing's call, about David crying in Ibadan, about consequences. Then he thought about Zainab lying in that gutter, dying, about how easily she could have died if he'd walked past like everyone else did, about justice. "Yes," he said, "I'll tell the truth." The press conference was held at the Olanrewaju Group headquarters, and it was standing room only. Journalists from every major Nigerian publication packed the conference hall, cameras ready, notebooks out. The story had all the elements Lagos loved: billionaire families, hidden identities, betrayal, and redemption. Tunde sat at the long table between Zainab and Chief Olanrewaju, more nervous than he'd ever been in his life. Public speaking wasn't something mechanics did. But when Zainab had asked him to be there to tell his part of the story, he'd agreed. She'd been through enough alone. Chief Olanrewaju spoke first, his voice carrying the weight of authority and controlled anger. "Thank you all for coming. We're here today to address false narratives that have been circulating about my daughter, Zainab Olanrewaju. For weeks, certain parties have attempted to paint her as a manipulative deceiver who trapped an innocent man. Today, we will present the full truth." He nodded to Mr. Benson, who began displaying images on the screen behind them. Medical records showing Zainab's condition the night Tunde found her: severe preeclampsia, dehydration, multiple bruises. Security footage from her former apartment building showing David dragging her down the stairs, throwing her belongings after her, shouting at her unconscious form in the street. The room was silent except for the clicking of cameras. "My daughter spent 2 years living as an ordinary woman," Chief Olanrewaju continued. "She worked a regular job, lived in a modest apartment, and married a man who didn't know her family background. She did this not to deceive, but to find authentic love, to know if someone could care for her without the influence of wealth." He paused, letting that sink in. The man she married, David Okonkwo, had every opportunity to show his character, and he did. When pregnancy made my daughter unable to work, when medical bills, less than 1 million naira total, began to accumulate, he called her a burden. When she became seriously ill, he threw her into the street to die rather than seek help. More images appeared. The gutter where Tunde had found her, the small room where he'd given her shelter, hospital records showing she'd been hours from death. "If not for this man," Chief Olanrewaju gestured to Tunde, "my daughter and grandson would be dead." Tunde Adebayo, a mechanic with barely enough to feed himself, stopped when dozens of others walked past. He gave her his bed, his food, his care. He expected nothing in return because he thought she had nothing to give. That is character. That is humanity. He looked directly at the cameras. "David Okonkwo and his family are now attempting to rewrite this story. They claim my daughter deceived him. They claim we're using our wealth to bully them. But wealth didn't throw a pregnant woman into the street. Wealth didn't leave her to die. Poverty didn't save her. Kindness did. One man's cruelty nearly killed her. Another man's compassion saved her. That's the story." Zainab spoke next, her voice steady despite the emotion behind it. "I want to address the accusation that I trapped David or deceived him maliciously. I was honest about everything except my family name and wealth. I told him my values, my dreams, my desire for genuine love. I worked, I contributed, I was a faithful wife. The only test I set was whether he could love me without wealth to influence him. He failed that test, not because I tricked him, but because his character couldn't withstand difficulty." She looked down at Chukwudi sleeping in her arms. "When I became pregnant, I was happy. David seemed happy too at first, but when complications arose, when I needed support, he showed me who he really was. He called me worthless. He said my baby wasn't his. He physically threw me out of our home knowing I was dangerously ill. No amount of social pressure or family influence justifies that. Those were his choices. Then it was Tunde's turn. His hands shook as he adjusted the microphone. My name is Tunde Adebayo. 3 months ago, I was a small mechanic barely surviving in Ikeja. On the night of September 15th, I was closing my shop when I heard someone crying. I found a woman in a gutter, pregnant, bleeding, barely conscious. I didn't know who she was. I didn't care. I just knew she needed help. He looked at Zainab. She asked me not to take her to the hospital because she had no money. So I took her to my room, one small room behind my shop. I gave her my bed. I tried to help her with the little first aid I knew. When her condition got worse, I was ready to take her to the hospital anyway, money or not, because she was dying. That's when Chief Olanrewaju's people directed me to Lagoon Hospital. He paused. I didn't help her for reward. I didn't know she was rich. I helped her because she was a human being suffering in front of me. My mother raised me to believe that's what you do. You help people when they need it, even if you get nothing back. Especially if you get nothing back. That's when your character really shows. Tunde looked directly at the cameras. David Okonkwo threw away a good woman because he thought she had no value. I helped a stranger because all human life has value. That's the difference. And if people want to discuss who the victim is in this story, look at the security footage, look at the medical records, look at the facts. The victim is the woman who was left to die, not the man who left her. The questions came rapid fire after that. Tunde answered honestly. Yes, Chief Olanrewaju had rewarded him. Yes, his life had changed dramatically. No, he didn't regret helping for 1 second. Yes, he'd do it again, even knowing nothing about who she was. One journalist asked the question everyone was wondering. Mr. Adebayo, some people are saying you're the real winner here. You went from poverty to partnership in a major company because you happened to help the right person. What do you say to those who think you got lucky? Tunde considered carefully. I think luck is what you call it when kindness meets opportunity. I didn't help Zainab hoping for reward, but Chief Olanrewaju saw my actions and decided to invest in my character. That's not luck. That's consequence. Good actions leading to good outcomes. If more people stopped to help others without calculating benefit first, maybe more people would experience that kind of luck. The press conference ended, but the story was just beginning. Within hours, it had spread across Nigerian media, not just the facts, but the security footage, the medical records, the devastating evidence of David's cruelty, contrasted with Tunde's unexpected heroism. Public opinion shifted dramatically. David's family fell silent as the evidence made their claims of victimhood impossible to maintain. Social media erupted with debates about character, wealth, and the kind of love that endures hardship versus the kind that evaporates under pressure. 2 weeks later, Tunde sat in a small cafe in Lekki across from Amara. They'd been seeing each other regularly. Nothing formal yet, just coffee, dinners, long conversations. She knew his whole story, including his sudden wealth, and treated him exactly the same as she had that first day. I saw your press conference, she said, stirring her coffee. You were nervous. Terrified, Tunde admitted. I'm not made for cameras and crowds. And yet you did it anyway, for Zainab. That says something about loyalty. She went through hell. The least I could do was stand beside her when she told the truth. Amara was quiet for a moment. Can I ask you something personal? Of course. Do you ever worry that people only see the money now? That they treat you differently because of what Chief Olanrewaju gave you rather than who you actually are? Tunde smiled. Every single day. It's why I still teach at the apprenticeship center every Saturday. Why I kept my old phone number. Why I drive a Toyota instead of a Mercedes. I don't want to lose who I was just because of what I have now. Good, Amara said. Because that's the man I'm interested in. Not the business owner. Not the partner in OAS. The man who stops for dying strangers. 3 months after the press conference, Tunde received an unexpected visitor at OAS headquarters. Ibrahim announced, Boss, someone named Blessing Okonkwo is here. Says she's David's sister. Tunde considered turning her away, but curiosity won. Blessing entered his office looking nervous, clutching a folder. Thank you for seeing me, she said. I know I have no right to ask for your time after everything. What do you want, Blessing? To apologize. Not for David. He needs to do that himself someday. But for our family. For the lies we spread. For trying to make Zainab the villain when she was the victim. She placed the folder on his desk. This is everything my family said about her. Social media posts, WhatsApp messages, gossip we spread. I've compiled it all. If she wants to pursue legal action for defamation, this is the evidence. Tunde opened the folder, saw the screenshots, the messages. Vicious lies about Zainab being a gold digger, a manipulator, a deceiver, all from David's family. Why are you giving me this? Because it's wrong. Because I watched the press conference and saw the security footage and realized we'd been defending the indefensible. Because my brother did something unforgivable, and we made it worse by lying for him. Tears streamed down her face. David is my brother and I love him. But he was wrong. And we were wrong to protect him. Tunde looked at her for a long moment. What's David doing now? Working at a mechanic shop in Ibadan, living in a single room. Exactly what you used to do, actually. The irony isn't lost on anyone. She wiped her eyes. He asks about his son every day. I tell him I don't know because we're not in contact with Zainab's family anymore. It destroys him every time. Good, Tunde said, and meant it. Maybe suffering will teach him what kindness couldn't. Maybe, Blessing stood. I just wanted to give you that evidence and say I'm sorry. What our family did to make things worse for Zainab was inexcusable. After she left, Tunde called Zainab. David's sister just came by with evidence of their defamation campaign. Says you can pursue legal action if you want. There was a long silence. Then, I don't want revenge anymore, Tunde. I just want peace. David got what he deserved. He has to live knowing he threw away his family for pride and stupidity. That's punishment enough. 1 year after that night in the gutter, Tunde stood at the opening ceremony of the third OAS location, this one in Abuja. The business had exploded beyond anyone's expectations. But what made Tunde proudest wasn't the success. It was the apprenticeship program he'd expanded to all 3 cities, training dozens of young mechanics for free, giving them the opportunities he'd never had. Amara stood beside him, her hand in his. They'd been dating for 8 months now, and Tunde had never been happier. She understood him in ways no one else did, saw past the money to the man who'd never forgotten what it meant to have nothing. Chief Olanrewaju approached with Zainab and baby Chukwudi, now walking and babbling constantly. The child ran to Tunde, arms up. Uncle Tunde! Tunde scooped him up, this child whose life he'd helped save, who would grow up never knowing his biological father, but surrounded by people who truly loved him. You did good, Chief Olanrewaju said, looking around at the ceremony, the business, the apprentices who'd come to celebrate. My investment in your character paid off better than any oil well. I'm just doing what's right, Tunde said. Exactly, the chief smiled. That's why it works. You never changed who you were. You just got the resources to do it on a bigger scale. As the sun set over Abuja, Tunde reflected on how one decision, to stop for a dying stranger, had changed everything. Not just for him, but for Zainab, for baby Chukwudi, for the dozens of apprentices he was training, for everyone his kindness had touched. His mother had been right. God was always watching. Character revealed itself not in grand gestures, but in simple choices, to help or walk past, to be kind or indifferent, to see humanity or ignore it. Tunde had stopped, and that had made all the difference. What did you think? Was justice served? Smash that like button, subscribe to Stories by Ajibs, and share this powerful message. Where are you watching from? Comment below. Remember, true character shows when you help someone with nothing to gain. You never know whose life you're saving, or how it might change yours. God bless.